But for the President of the United States to continue to prevaricate on this issue, I think does a great injustice and a disservice to the men and women of the intelligence law enforcement community, and does a great disservice to the citizens of the United States. And that's why I said it was nothing short of treasonous.
Nothing short of treasonous. A former director of the CIA, a man who voted for the Communist Party before he joined the CIA, calling my former boss, Donald Trump, a traitor. Well, who are the real traitors in America? Welcome to the Gorka Reality Check with me, your host, Sebastian Gorka. Let's look at the situation in America right now. Let's look at what you've been told for the last 5 years. Incessantly in the mainstream media, we were told lies, headlines about Russian collusion between the Trump campaign and between the Trump administration and Moscow. We were told about nefarious meetings in Trump Tower. We were told about collusive phone calls with the president of the Ukraine by President Trump. And then, of course, a good friend of mine, former colleague in the White House, we were told that General Flynn was somehow a traitor to America, when in fact he was just doing his job. So who are the real traitors? Who's committing treason? Is it Mark Milley? Is it cadets at West Point? Is it people on the National Security Council who testify before Congress in uniform and somehow think that they are the commander-in-chief? Let's remind ourselves of Alexander, "Don't call me Mr. Vindman."
In the spring of 2019, I became aware of two disruptive actors, primarily Ukraine's then prosecutor Yuri Lutsenko and former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, President's personal attorney, promoting false narratives that undermined the United States-Ukraine policy. The NSC and its interagency partners, including the State Department, grew increasingly concerned about the impact that such information was having on our country's ability to achieve our national security objectives.
Phone calls that he found disturbing that undermined our national security. Well, guess what, Sasha, because that's your real name since you were born in the Ukraine and offered the job of defense minister for the Ukraine, which is really strange since you're wearing the uniform of the United States Army. You're not the commander-in-chief. Nobody elected you. Nobody voted for you. The national security of this country is in the hands of one person, the incumbent commander-in-chief, who happened to be Donald Trump. You don't get to decide. But what was really happening? Who were the people undermining national security in America? It wasn't the president. It was extremists across the country, from Portland to Washington, burning down businesses, looting, rampaging through the street. You remember the images. In the nation's capital, of all places, we had St. John's Episcopal Church, the church known as the President's Church, where Abraham Lincoln prayed before his inauguration, attacked. An attempt to burn the church down 1 block away from the White House. What did the treasonous Donald Trump do in response? He restored order. And in that seminal image, that footage of him walking across Lafayette Square in front of his team to restore order in the nation's capital, we saw what patriotism is. The opposite of what this man was accused of. And at the end, just to make sure the symbolism was clear to everyone who hated this nation and our Christian heritage, he stood there holding a Bible to say, "You will not do this on my watch." Somebody who walked across this square with him, who apologized for doing so, was the chairman of the Joint Chief, who's still in that position. I won't call him by his rank because he truly is a traitor. This man, Milley, gave a statement on video after President Trump quelled a true insurrection, and you need to listen to what he said back then. Play cut.
The protests that have ensued not only speak to his killing, but also to the centuries of injustice towards African Americans. What we are seeing is the long shadow of our original sin in Jamestown 401 years ago, liberated by the Civil War, but not equal in the eyes of the law until 100 years later in 1965. We are still struggling with racism, and we have much work to do.
What are you doing lecturing us, Mark Milley? You're not a politician. You're not a historian. You're the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. You have one job: to advise the president on military issues. You're not in even the chain of command. And you're talking to us about racial injustice in America. How come you didn't make a video about David Dorn, the black retired police captain murdered during the riots by BLM? You made no comment about the hundreds of law enforcement officers, some of them very seriously wounded by Antifa and BLM. But you're going to lecture us about injustice in America? A man who thinks it's great to have critical race theory taught at the most prestigious military academy in America? How very, very strange. But we shouldn't be surprised, because this is the man who we found out did what after the events of January 6th. He reached out. It's in the headlines. It's everywhere. To an equivalent, his counterpart in the Chinese Communist military, to guarantee to them, don't worry, that crazy guy Trump, my boss, he's not going to start war with China. Now that's collusion. The Constitution is clear. The National Security Act is clear. He's not in the chain of command. In America, we have civilian control of the military. We elect the commander-in-chief, and if he uses our military, he orders the Secretary of Defense, who then orders the service chiefs. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs is not in the chain of command. So upon what basis did he insert himself into the chain of command? And what authority does he have to warn or negotiate with our biggest strategic enemy, which just happens to be a communist dictatorship? Mark Milley is a disgrace, not only to his uniform, but to the oath he took and to the United States. How did we get here? Don't be surprised. Do you remember that story about that cadet at West Point? West Point, who in his West Point cadet's uniform puts up the power fist. In his cap, in his cover, he says, communism will win, as he pulls out his T-shirt of the man who was the murderous minister inside the Cuban Revolution, dealing out justice. Che Guevara, a racist and a murderer. He's doing that at West Point. The rot is deep. What do we do about it? We fight back. We deal with the swamp in a forward-leaning manner, whether it's our military or whether it's diplomats like Antony Beta Male Blinken, who was read the Riot Act this week in Congress by a brave politician who said, you know what, Blinken, you're as corrupt as the rest of them. Let's talk about you and the FBI. Play cuts.
How long was your recent interview with the FBI, and was it a deposition?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring.
Are you saying that you have not had a recent interview with the FBI since becoming Secretary of State?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, and I'm happy to take that up with you offline.
Did the State Department turn over documents to the FBI related to Hunter Biden, Burisma, and or the Blue State Strategies Corporation?
You'll have to...
That's how you do it. And he's with us right now, rising to the rank of Brigadier General in our own armed forces, now representing the 10th District of Pennsylvania, Congressman Perry. Welcome to the Gorka Reality Check.
Great to be with you, Dr. Gorka. Thanks for the opportunity. And I think what we've learned, and of course you've laid it out wonderfully, is that the radical left, whatever they're accusing you of doing, they're actually doing it. Case after case after case. I mean, as you said, they accused Donald Trump of all things horrific, including treason, Meanwhile, it appears, look, and General Milley deserves his day in court. We've called for a 15-6 investigation on him regarding these comments. If he didn't make the comments, if he didn't make the calls, if the calls were authorized, we'll stand down and there'll be nothing else of it. But these reports seem to be credible, and he has not denied. First of all, he has not denied making the calls, and I'll remind everybody that the Secretary of Defense at the time said that those calls were not authorized, but he has not denied at all the verbiage, the allegations of the conversation of the call. Imagine, this is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, got 4 stars on his shoulder board, and instead of reading Kendi, instead of reading Sun Tzu, he's reading Kendi. Sun Tzu would tell you the element of surprise is a force multiplier. It makes your operations that much more successful, that element of surprise. But he would give that away to the Chinese communists who say that America is their enemy. That the Chinese say that the communists in China say that America is their enemy.
Yeah, just the idea. What if we have to go to war with China? What if we have to? In fact, it is precipitated. What is he going to do? Going to say, guys, we're coming, prepare for us around Taiwan and the left flank. This is why it is treasonous. Thank you for writing your letter that you issued on Thursday, and thank you for everything you're doing. I'm going to ask the question that maybe I shouldn't ask. Why is footage, like the clip I just showed of you, challenging the head of the State Department regarding his covering for Hunter Biden? Why is behavior like that, robust response to the deep state, the exception? Why don't we see more of that coming from your Republican colleagues?
Dr. Gorka, I got to tell you, it's something that's disappointing to me. I don't think that many Americans, including some of my colleagues in Congress, understand what's happening with the political discourse and what's actually occurring politically in the United States of America today. We used to think of the other side as the loyal opposition, loyal to the country, but they would do things differently. We disagreed with some of that policy. When you talk about some of the people that are now running that party, I'm talking about the likes of AOC and of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and the gentleman from New York. They're not looking out for America's best interests. They are globalists, and they are actually, in my opinion, antithetical to America. And our colleagues on our side of the aisle think that we can just go along with we just have a slight disagreement of opinion. It's much more than a slight disagreement of opinion. When someone's trying to destroy your country, you got to fight back.
Yeah, it's very simple. For me, the metric is very simple. We have people like you who love America, who want to save America, and we have those who hate it and want to dismantle it. Whether it's that communist cadet at West Point or whether it's treasonous individuals at the top of our military inside the Pentagon and even in the position of Secretary of Defense who wanted to hunt enemies in the armed forces. Enemies in the U.S. armed forces. All I have to say is God bless you, Congressman, Brigadier General, for serving our nation in uniform and out of uniform. And God bless you to continue to do what you're doing.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.